My name is Richard Taylor. 8 years ago, a neurologist said to me, "Richard, you have dementia, probably the Alzheimer's type." I have turned into, or evolved to, I was a psychologist. I've morphed into an advocate for people living with dementia, because I don't believe people with dementia stand up and speak out about what it's like to live with dementia. And because I believe that people who don't have dementia, it's just impossible for you to completely empathize with us, because you can imagine if you're dealing with someone who's blind, you could close your eyes, or someone who's deaf, or has lost a leg, or is wheelchair bound. But everybody here, just imagine you have dementia. We would get 20 different imaginations. So I try to be verbal, since it's my profession, and as my family tells me, that's who I am, speak out. I try to be verbal about the issues that affect me. And one of the issues that I would like to discuss with you is truth-telling. Sometimes you refer to it as therapeutic lying, fibbing to people. But essentially what you're doing is telling somebody something that's just not true. And those situations generally come up when you want to get them to do something, but you can't get them to do it just by asking them. Well, you got to take a shower now because your son is coming over. Well, you got to get dressed a little quicker because your wife will be here, knowing full well that I'll forget that. But it does motivate me in the moment, for a moment, to get dressed or to be compliant with whatever your wishes are. You do it in my name. Well, this is for your own good. Just like we lie to children, we lie to adults to accomplish things that are just easier to accomplish, and knowing that the adult or the child can't confirm it, or won't remember it, or will believe you. And I say to people, please don't lie to me. If my caregivers or care partners, or whatever words you're using, start lying, what happens if I have a cognizant moment? What risk are you taking when you lie to people? What if I know you're lying? It might be just a small little silly lie, but I trust you. I have trusted you. I feel comfortable around you. What happens when you catch somebody in a lie? Pardon? Just move your lips. It's okay.
You're in trouble.
You're in trouble, right? I mean, people get divorced over a little white lie that one sees as a white lie and the other sees as the biggest lie of your life, you know. And you lose trust in the person. And you may hate that person for 20 years, your ex-husband or your ex-wife or your lover or whoever it was that lied to you. That's one of the risks you run. The other risk is, I depend on you to be my pillar of truth. I turn to you to know if this is good or bad, or what's going to happen next. So what if I decide that I can't trust you? Or what if you start manipulating me, and it's just easier to manipulate me than it is to be truthful with me? I never take a shower, I'm just going for a walk. But why the hell do I always end up in the shower when we go for a walk? You know, I don't know, what else do we lie about?
The elevator's broken.
Oh, okay. And therefore we have to take the stairs or we have to walk?
Or you have to stay where you are.
Oh.
That's the reason you're not allowed to leave, is the elevator's broken.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
She was just here.
Yeah. Uh-huh. She'll be back tomorrow, I'm sure.
Or she'll be right back.
Yeah. Right. This isn't going to hurt. The doctor said to do this. Or your wife wants you to do it, or your husband, or we lie in the name of somebody else. And I've noticed people feel uncomfortable calling them lies. They don't want to call them lies. But understand from my perspective, that's what it is. I'm Richard. Can I see here? You did. Well, what we're talking about here is truth-telling, or lying. Do we lie to each other? Why do we lie to each other? And is it a good thing?
We lie to each other to save feelings. I mean, it's not a traditional type, but when I lie, I'm saving feelings for others. I'm trying to cover up.
I don't want to remind you that your mother died when you tell me that your mom is coming tomorrow.
I'm sorry?
I don't want to deal with the fact that your mom has died and you think she's alive.
No, I don't think she's alive.
Well, I know that, but I'm just pretending like, you know, if you were to tell me my mother's coming tomorrow, should I say to you, well, you know, she died about 20 years ago. I don't think she'll be.
No, you don't have to say that. Just say she'll be there in spirit, in the elders' reality. The elders' reality normally is in touch with their family when they keep a hold of it. I don't think it should be a lie. I think you should say, yes, they're there. Maybe not in the room, but they're there spiritually.
Yes, there are ways of telling people your mother physically can't make it other than saying, well, you know she's dead. I went to her funeral.
Yeah.
I showed you the mass card. Whatever. Yes. I look at it as you can lay the truth out to people because that's your obligation. That's why people come here, because they know you're truth tellers. My neighbors could lie to me and I could live in my own little world. But you don't push it in their face. And you leave them the opportunity to pick up the truth or the opportunity to ignore the truth. But your obligation is always to tell people the truth. But you tell it, as you say, in a very kind, I was a psychologist, so I would say validating their feelings. You know, I've never met your mother, and I know people just love her because I know you love her. And I don't believe she's going to be able to come tomorrow because I think she passed. But if she doesn't come, I'm going to find some pictures of your mother. And you and I can sit tomorrow morning and let's talk about your mom, because I'd like to know more about her. She's such a wonderful person. I think that's how you avoid the trap of having people break into tears and be depressed and have to give them an antidepressant.
I think you're right. I think that's a very good reason, a very good rationale.
Sir?
Richard.
Richard, I'm sorry. It's all right to cry. It's human emotion. And when I've gone to all my family funerals, that's all it is, crying and holding each other and talking. It's true emotion. I mean, I've never met a person that doesn't cry. I am a crier. I can cry in Catholic cartoons, but I'm saying it's easy for me to cry. I've cried at all the passings of people here, and I didn't really know them, but I knew they were a part of my life. So it's kind of showing the expression and respect. You don't go and laugh, so you might, it's okay to cry.
And there are a couple of difficulties sometimes, I think, when we're supporting other people. One of them is that sometimes we get uncomfortable with those emotions and we try to stop them. So we rush in and we say, don't cry, it's okay, because we're not comfortable just sitting there and letting the person express themselves. And so I think part of it is being more comfortable with giving the person space to express their feelings. The other thing is that when you have a label, like Alzheimer's, like dementia, and you express normal human emotions, sometimes we talk about it like it's a problem. Oh, he's got emotional lability. He's crying because he has dementia, instead of he's sad because his mother died. And so sometimes we rush to medicate somebody because they're doing something that you or I might do and we wouldn't think anything. If I were working with JoJo in a place like AgeSong and she started crying, I might ask her what's the matter. But if I were caring for somebody who was living with Alzheimer's and they started crying, I might say, oh, that's a behavior problem. We got to give a medication to stop that. And so we often change normal human behavior into diseases because we know somebody has a label. And we see the label instead of the person. It's something that the psychologist Tom Kidd would call positioning.
I'm labeled from head to toe.
Yeah.
With all my problems from head to toe. And I talk to myself in labels. And it's only because I've been used to the doctors talking that way. And I don't feel myself as labeled. But it's the way I can express myself, because I don't know any other way to do it.
What are some of the labels that are used for you?
Hydrocephalus,
Uh-huh.
neurologically disabled,
Uh-huh.
hypertensive. I don't want to go on.
Okay, that's okay. Let me just say, I don't want you to share things you don't want to share, but you have been given some medical labels, some diagnoses, and some functional labels, what you can and can't do.
Yes.
So this is the problem we often have with people who are forgetful, is we label them with dementia and we don't see the person. So would you mind sharing with us who you really are that's way beyond all those medical labels? Just so we know you better. The whole
I am
JoJo.
Joanne Lynn Boyette Bedard. I am 62 years of age. I'm a second generation native San Francisco. My mother and I went to the same grammar school. We lived on one side, she lived on one side of the street and they rented on the other side of the street. That's how we went to the same grammar school, which was Sherman School at Franklin and Union. I just dig being me.
Yeah, I can see that.
You know, I'm a twin, and I've had that to fight all my life. You didn't know that, but I am a twin, and he was normal. I was the neurological handicapped person from birth.
Yeah.
But I hang around with my cousins and my brother, and would do the best I could. Even if I couldn't run and catch up, I would crawl up the stairs. I would bounce down. I mean, I still can't walk downstairs or upstairs. We're practicing at it. It's a point of being alive and not there. A lot of the time we're spoken as we're not here. Like my mother used to say to the kids, they're in the other room. Do you know what I'm saying, Dr. Powers?
I know exactly what you're saying, and you're speaking to the very first thing Richard said in our first talk yesterday, which was the most important thing is to know who I am.
Yes.
Not just my labels, not just my diagnoses or my medications, but if you really want to support me, you've got to know more about who I am as a person. So I think, JoJo, you're saying it beautifully.
People with dementia are thought of as fading away. He's not all there. He's half empty.
Excuse me, but aren't we all fading away from birth?
We're one day closer to our death. Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry, go on.
That's okay.
No, you're right. I mean, I say that facetious.
I know.
And if you know somebody is dying, you know, it's hard to be around them a lot. How many times are you going to say goodbye to them? This might be the last time I see you. You might not say that, but you might feel that. And so you stop coming around because I know it's uncomfortable for him and it's a little uncomfortable for me. And so at the very time when we need more human contact, more love from people who love us, we have more love we want to give people, people begin to separate themselves from us. Mm-hmm. And if they have to, they lie about it. Oh, we're busy at home, or you know how it is, the kids, and oh, the car's not working. So when you have dementia, you're particularly vulnerable to be lied to because you have stigmas attached to you that you're fading away. You're dying, actually, is what they think. That's how they feel when they see you. Mm-hmm. That's why when you walk in a room, sometimes it just goes quiet because the dead person was walking. They walked into the room. And you don't want to seem too jolly and happy.
What did you mean by the dead person walked in the room?
Well, they see you as dying.
Okay.
And once people see you as dying rather than living every day, they don't like to be around you.
Okay.
Because it makes them feel uncomfortable. And because they feel uncomfortable, they blame you, or not that they don't blame you, they use you to stay away. Well, I know Richard doesn't want to have a lot of people around him right now. I don't want to interrupt this process. So I don't go visit him as often because it's so hard on him when I hug him goodbye and knowing that I might not be able to see him again because you know everyone dies who has dementia.
Yes.
Another point you're making there too is that when you do come around, you are expressing that body language of, I think you're dying, I'm here to say goodbye. Imagine if we did that with everybody. Imagine if I came to visit you and, oh, Jojo, you poor thing.
Take eye.
You poor thing, how are you?
Yeah.
But that's what we do often.
Yes.
When we see people.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was.
No, that's funny. I think that's perfect. But you're right, that is how I would react too if someone said that to me.
I'm around dying people every day. I'm one of the younger people here. I'm 62 years of age. I came in at 44 years of age.
18 years?
Yeah, 19 years?
19 now.
Yeah, and it's kind of scary because I go to bed every night wondering who's going to be gone in the morning. And that's a hard way to go to sleep because a lot of people pass on a regular basis. And it's difficult because, well, I should get on this. My roommate, I'm very worried about. She's losing her faculties up here, whether it's dementia, whatever it is. And she's not eating, and there I am watching the woman dwindle away. And I don't stay around her much anymore because it upsets me. I'm a traveler. I go to all the groups and all outside, then I can bother the nurses and some of the interns. A lot of the interns, I should say. It's the truth, honey. It's very hard. And then when we go to the park every day, up the street, and people die there frequently too, and they're gone. You wonder where they've gone, and you know it's very hard. I'm not saying that I don't want to live through this, because I must. It's part of my journey. And I've chosen to live here at AgeSong, and I never want to leave it until I'm gone, if they'll keep me. But you know, it's very hard because we get a new set of interns every year. That's tough. That's tougher than anybody could imagine, because the majority of the people here can't speak the way I do and put things forward. I kind of do it for them, if you understand what I'm saying. And I love all the CarePartners and the people that take care of the house, the people that do our club. I just hug everybody, and it's heart wrenching, but that's why I'm here. That's why I'm staying alive. There's a reason for all of this, and there's a reason for all of our fine interns and all of our fine people that live here, including you, Joe.
I'm here. Eating away.
Still here.
Okay, that's all I gotta say. I'm sorry.
Don't
It's
be
not
sorry.
I didn't mean to roll on.
It's not Joe, it's Joseph.
All right, Joseph.
Thank you.
It's Joe, and it's not Joanne.
I didn't call that up.
And so given the reality that we all, if we're lucky, get old and will eventually pass away, given the reality that people who live with different kinds of cognitive change don't want to be seen as fading away,
We're all fading away.
Yeah. So what are some of the things we can do in a community like this to give everybody the fullest life possible, regardless of their mortality or their abilities?
Pay attention to them. Give them a hug. Sit and talk to them. Hold their hand. Press their shoulder. I mean,
Listen to them.
yes.
Beautiful.
Right, Niall. Thank you, sir.
Amen.
This is what the Guru Project's all about. It's not about me and Richard. It's about our elders telling us what they need.
People don't listen. Do you feel not listened to?
Sometimes.
And why do you think people don't listen to you?
Think they're too busy. They think.
You all right now?
It's our chair, guys.
Want another
You
chair?
want a soft
Like a soft one now?
Want to sit right there where Amanda's at? Let's sit over there.
Careful, I'll bite you.
I don't think so.
It's one of my favorite buddies. Put both hands down before you sit down, Niall.
One of the difficulties is we are in a system where all the people around us seem to give us the impression that the tasks we do are more important than the people.
Oh, I
It's
think
more
also
important
the
to
shit.
write these things in the chart and get the medications passed than to actually spend the time with people. And we got regulators that tell us that, we got reimbursement mechanisms that tell us that, but we have people who are saying, slow down and listen to me. I'm really your job. Those pills aren't your job. That charting isn't your job. I'm your job, and that you work that around me, right? Does that sound right now?
Is that right, Niall?
You betcha.
Okay.
Very good.
The person,
Yep.
our relationship is really the task. That's why you're here. Otherwise, we have robots come in and do the things that are just tasks. That's why we have human beings. And that's why we have more human beings than you would get if you lived in the Holiday Inn.
Yes.
You came to a special place where we say human relationships are the most important thing. So we're going to have a lot of humans around for you to have a lot of relationships with. And what we end up with is a lot of humans around being real busy. And forgetting what the task is. People are the task. The relationship is the task. And I think sometimes those of us with dementia can make a very difficult task of it. Because we think differently than you do sometimes. We don't quite understand reality the way you understand reality. It's hard for me to appreciate the fact that you're not here for me 24 hours a day when I need you. You're only here between 2 and 3, or you have to go home on the weekends to your family instead of being here with me. We are a challenging task. But that's why you're here, because we thought you were up to the task. That's why we have meetings like this where we can talk about the task, the relationships that we develop with people, and come up with new ideas of how we can be successful in that task. Because friendship with us is achieved differently than friendship with other people. It takes more time.
That's right.
There's a lot more time when neither one of us is talking. And if you've ever been to a party full of 20-somethings, they don't take a breath. They're talking all the time. We do. Sometimes we take 4 or 5 breaths. But we feel comfortable doing that because that's just the way our mind works right now.
I have to go. I have to go.
To the bathroom now?
It's okay now.
I have to go now.
Okay. Thanks for joining us now. Thanks for your comments. They're very important.
Thanks for being here.
Always.
To our newcomers, I'll say we're talking about truth-telling and lying. Is it appropriate to tell white lies or little fibs, therapeutic fibs?
Yes,
Yes, I say yes.
it's appropriate.
But you tell me the other one, the bad one, will come and fight you later on.
Yeah, well, how do you tell the difference?
I think you have to judge yourself, really. If you affect the person directly when you tell that lie, and it really affects them, that's a bad lie. But if you tell little white lies, actually, you're making the relationship with him better, I think, anyway.
So if I told you you had to hurry up and get dressed because your son was coming over today, but actually he's not, but you're being pokey about getting dressed today, is that a good one or a bad one?
It's a white lie. My
It's
wife
a
is
bad
like
one.
all the time.
Oh,
That's normal. Especially when she dragged me to the symphony. And that's a drag.
Or church?
No, church I do pretty good. I'm a Catholic for
Okay.
74 years, Catholic.
Yeah, I'm 62 years Catholic.
Carry on.
I feel like I've explored this topic like quite a lot. I feel like a lot of it's the intentionality. If what you're saying is to get someone to do something that you want them to do, then that's the line between like good and bad. Whereas I'll tell if I'm working with someone or just hanging out with someone and they say something that I know to be not true, I'll join their reality and take what they're saying. You know, if we're in Paris, we're in Paris. If that's fine, and I want to be curious about their world. But if I'm making up something to get them to do what I want, it's like the intentionality. Is it coming from the person you're interacting with, whether that's someone with or without a dementia diagnosis? You know, you're trying to manipulate them. That's where I feel like the line of good and bad is more than the actual words that are said.
It's connection, you guys.
well, why is it that you would go along with somebody? What's your intention in going along?
To be with them and be curious about what their experience is like and look for what they're wanting to share with me if they're speaking to me. So what does, I feel like a lot of times, especially with people with dementia diagnoses, the words that they might be searching for that I would understand aren't there. So listening for like the metaphor behind what is there. What does, if it is like that we're in Paris or it's a different year, what about that is being communicated?
I feel like there's a fine line here, and it gets to what I was saying in the last session about understanding the meaning or the symbolism, the emotion behind what the person says, and not getting hung up on the words. The paradox between lying or telling the truth really comes when you get stuck in answering the words factually without understanding the emotion and the symbolism of what the person's saying. And I think the best way to escape getting in trouble and not misjudging whether what you're doing is good or bad is to explore. I'm not into so much playing into something that may not be in my reality by building it up with lots of trappings, but to understand, to say to somebody, tell me what that's like, to validate the feeling and then say, well, how does it feel? And find out underneath what's underneath it. And then you can find better ways to address the person, that really address their underlying emotion, not the facts or the lack of facts about where they are or what they're doing. That's kind of, I kind of skirt around it. So I'm not really telling a lie or necessarily confronting people with my reality, but saying, you know, it sounds to me you're telling me that you really miss your mother, and it's really tough not having somebody around who's so important to you. Tell me about your mother. You know, what would she do if she were with you here today? And it brings you to that deeper place of understanding what triggered the question than just the fact of the question, I think.
Dr. Power, in my situation, I have a sweet little old lady, her name is Nellie, and she doesn't know when I've been in the room or when I've left it. And she's always saying, you're never here. I says, Nellie, I come in after you're asleep and I'm out before you're awake. I apologize. But I am here. You see my stuff all over my, but anyway, it's like she says, you're never here.
Yeah.
And I am there.
Yeah. She's not feeling the connection, and of course you are there, but I think what she's telling you is that just trying to say you are there isn't working for her. It's not convincing her. And I think all you can really do is just when you're with her, make the time you're with her really important connection time. And she'll feel that emotional connection. She may not remember every time you're in the room, but she will start to associate that relationship with you more deeply. So that even when you're not there, she'll feel the presence and the connection to you more. Right now, for whatever reason, she doesn't feel enough connection. What's that?
I am here.
I am here.
Well, welcome back.
Yes.
That's what we're about.
Good. Well, let me ask you a question then, taking off from that. If you don't mind me asking you a question, come sit if you'd like, or if you'd rather stand.
I'd rather stand, but go ahead.
Oh, well, you answer it any way you like then. Niall told us before that the most important thing, we asked, well, how can you validate people, okay, given the difficulty of the situation? He said, by listening to us. And he said that people often don't listen to him the way he'd like, and they get tied up in tasks. So my question is, what's some of your advice for what are good ways to be a good listener? What are some of the things we need to know to be better listeners?
Watch the mouth.
Watch the mouth. And what else?
That's all you need.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Pay attention. That's what you're saying, aren't you?
That's what
Yeah.
I say.
Pay specific attention. The mouth.
We are taught in our society to do something we call multitasking.
Right.
To do 5 jobs at once because it's efficient. But when you talk to a person, you can't be doing those 5 jobs because the person needs to know that you're focused on what he or she is saying. I do a thing that I call the eye of the hurricane approach, meaning that I'm as crazy as everybody else when I'm at work. But if I go up to somebody to speak with them, particularly a person who's living with forgetfulness, I try very hard to get out of my mind what I was just doing or where I'm going and just say, right at this moment, I want to be 100% with this person and aware. And I think that sometimes people that have trouble communicating, when they know you're not there mentally, it just shuts them down. They don't try. And so you get more information when you really can change yourself and be more open and present with the person, I think.
Well put.
Okay, good.
Nicely put.
Glad we're on the same wavelength there. And it's a tough thing because we do have all these jobs to do, and we're constantly being told, get these 3 people up. And so you don't want to take that moment to connect. But 2 moments of real connection is worth a whole day of tasks. It really is. And it will save you a lot of trouble in the long run.
Have you ever tried to talk to somebody who's texting? And they're looking down in their lap and their thumbs are moving and they'll say, well, go ahead, I'm just texting here. Or sometimes they're talking to somebody on the phone. They take a call in the middle of your conversation.
Yeah, a lot of that comes out.
And maybe they'll say, excuse me, and step away, but maybe they'll just say, just keep talking. I've got 2 ears, you know. I had my brain split in half, so I can do 2 things at once.
The problem is the people we're talking to can't always do that. They need our full attention in order to express their words that are difficult to find. And if we don't have our attention on them, they get clouded and it makes it harder. And sometimes we don't get important messages because we're not fully listening to what the person's saying. I've been accused of hallucinating by nurses because they'll send me to see somebody and say, she doesn't talk. And I'll come back out 15 minutes later and say, well, she told me her leg hurts. And they'll think I'm crazy, but it's just that they're rushing around so much that they don't actually take that moment to give her the space to tell them that. And so they assume.
There's only so much time on the clock.
Yeah.
I spoke once at a nursing home, and they brought in a number of people, residents, to hear me speak. And as they were leaving, a lady was in her chair, and she stopped and she pulled on the sleeve of the administrator, and she said, "This is the best program I've been to since I've been here." And he started to cry because it was the first time she'd ever said anything in about 2 years.
Wow.
Well, she never had anything to talk about. She never had anything to say that she felt had meaning to the person she was talking to. That was the real sad part of it, I thought. But that's what happens to us. And because we have dementia and we're a little unsure of ourselves, we don't speak up, other than present company excluded. We don't speak up as much as we used to. So we just eat it. We just swallow it. And unfortunately, that just adds to everybody's opinion to us that we're stupid, or that we can't understand, or that it's a waste of time to talk to us. You believe that? What are some of the others of you who haven't spoken yet? What do you have to say about what we're saying here? Does anybody else have something that they'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I'd like to tell you thank you.
Well, I'd like to say you're welcome.
What you said was very meaningful.
What for the two of you is seem like the next steps in your own life? What you would you still like to see accomplished for yourself? What's still important?
Well, while you're thinking, I'll say I am getting really tired of talking about antipsychotic drugs. I would like the world to just understand that they don't work and they're dangerous, and let's get on to learning what else we can do. Because I've been arguing about these now for 7 or 8 or 10 or 15 years, and it's time to move on. So I really, I certainly enjoy my work, but what I want to do is I want to go other places. And what excites me now is the idea of creating inclusive communities, inclusive societies, where people of all ages and abilities can continue to live and engage fully, and not either be moved out because they don't fit, or be just taken care of and disabled because nobody sees what they have to contribute. Because I think that we need to do that. As our society gets older, we can't continue to move older people to nursing homes. There's not enough younger people to build them. So how do we create a society where everybody's part of it and where we all learn from each other? And as Richard was saying, we're moving to a place where all the old people live here and all the millennials live here, and all the people who like the Boston Red Sox live in the insane asylum over there. And oh, sorry, this new political commentary. Is that good for our society, or is it bad to segregate ourselves like that? We have to stop segregating ourselves, because we don't learn from people that think the same way we do. We learn from diversity, and we learn from unity with people around us. That's one of the reasons I love San Francisco, is it's one of the most diverse and inclusive cities I know of in our country, I think. There are other diverse cities, but they're not inclusive. They're very segregated. And I see more inclusivity here than I do in most places. Imagine you're a person who has trouble pulling up information from recent time. You tend to forget more recent things, and you tend to think more about long ago when you were young. And imagine you're sitting in the chair in a home, and you start to shift your weight or maybe stand up because you got to do something, and you hear an alarm go off. What did you learn alarms meant when you were young?
Get up.
Get up, danger, get out,
Duck.
fire, duck, bombs, whatever.
Duck, get under the desk.
So if you are getting up and you hear an alarm go off, is your response going to be to calmly sit back down?
course not.
And that's why alarms don't work, because they startle people, they make people more anxious instead of less. In many places that have removed like chair alarms and those types of things have actually seen a reduction in falls because the sudden noise can actually frighten people who don't know where the sound came from or what's going on or what they can do. So anyway, back to Richard's comment about where he's headed.
When I first decided I was going to stand up and say, hello, my name is Richard Taylor and I have Alzheimer's disease, I thought that's about all you had to say. And then people would say, oh, well, geez, he's a real person. He's all there. He's the same Richard. But that hasn't been the case. People have said, oh, well, you don't have Alzheimer's disease. People have said, oh, well, you're different. You're the outlier of it. People have just turned inside out to try to accept me and still hang on to their beliefs about what it is for people with dementia. Yes, but. I get a lot of yes, buts. And I don't know how to get beyond the buts. Everybody has a but.
You bet.
And that but is limited to your knowledge of butts is limited to the number of butts you've seen or talked to or laid your hands on. And so when you find a butt speaking up over here that doesn't act like a butt, you have to try to explain it away rather than open up your mind and say, well, maybe I should reconsider how I think of people with dementia. And wouldn't that thought be like a lightning bolt in society? It would just jump from, oh yeah, that's how we look at our grandmother, to that's how I look at my mother, that's how I looked at my dad, to, well, gee, that's how I look at my patients. And it would just spread. And it hasn't. It hasn't. There are more little pockets of enlightened New Age, AgeSong people. I will acknowledge that. But they're insulated pockets. No one says, oh, that's what we should be doing. Everyone says, oh, well, we can't do that for this. We can't do that because of this regulation. We can't do that because of the people we pay. We don't pay them enough to do this or that. Everybody has a reason why they can't be like these pockets of excellence, and this is certainly a pocket of excellence. I don't understand that. I just don't. Perhaps it's because it's so personal to me that people should get this. But it isn't just a matter of speaking out, and I can't figure out what it is. It isn't a matter of writing a book or being on television. I've done all that stuff. It isn't a matter of thinking it through. I thought it through. It isn't a matter of being able to explain it. I'm pretty good at explaining it. I don't know what the matter is. I don't. And I have to be careful that I don't push people too far because they're going to push back at me. So I see myself as kind of treading water. And you need to, there's a lot of us treading water, and it's good that we're treading water. It's better than just staying in this sea of calm ignorance. But on the other hand, after you've treaded for a while, it gets tiring. It seems like you're saying the same things over and over. And so then you begin to seek out people who are like-minded, because it feels good when people sit and nod when I'm talking. But you knew all this stuff before you came here. You didn't have to have me come to tell you. You're trying to practice it now. But then when I go speak to people who aren't paying attention, roll their eyes at me, fall asleep while they're talking, text while they're talking, I feel that I can't help but feel that I'm a failure sometime and that I didn't explain it to them clear enough. I should have yelled a little louder at them.
You're not the failure. The failure are the people listening.
I'm afraid that's true.
I mean, I say a lot. I think you probably might realize this already. But I step in front and talk on behalf of people. Because a lot of the people can't talk. And I spend enough time caressing and holding and seeing the smiles and the softness. It's like everybody's piled into one big pile, and somewhere in there is somebody at the bottom. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm always crawling to get out of what I'm in. And I say, why am I doing this? It's tiring. And I'm only 62. But it's tiring to be doing all this climbing around and thinking, and I'm always thinking, I'm not being funny, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in your shoes, but I'm in my own shoes, it's hard. And I appreciate you being here. You too, Dr. Power.
Thank you. I think what you're both struggling with is really a structure. It's not a physical structure so much as a system. You know, there's something that we often do. It's called fundamental attribution error. We blame people for having bad character when actually they work within a system that doesn't enable them to have a different kind of character. And I think aging has become an institution. And I think dementia, and I'm using the word intentionally here, has become an institution. And it can be an institution like a horrendous nursing home, but it could be an institution like our regulatory system, or like the American Medical Association, or like an Alzheimer's advocacy organization. They become these almost unyielding structures that perpetuate themselves. And institutions are very resistant to change. And even though people who work in these systems may want to change, may feel what Richard's saying, it is just so hard to fight City Hall because you got people telling you, no, you can't do that, you got to do this. And it even blinds our thinking. There's a saying that institutions tend to preserve the same kinds of problems that they're the solution for. So, in other words, we'll keep this problem going because our current practice, you know, that keeps our current practice going. If you want to get rid of the institution, if you want to solve the problems in a new way, you have to get rid of this deep-seated culture and structure, and that's really hard to do because it takes, I see providers that work with assisted living or nursing homes, and they want to change, but as Richard said earlier, with barriers to like psychology, if they're not paid more money to do the right thing, if they're paid more money to do the wrong thing, or if the regulators come in and give them dings on the record for doing the right thing instead of the wrong thing, it's very hard for any one part of this societal system to change. Everything has to shift, and it's a huge thing. And the benefit of having like-minded people, we may not feel like we're pushing each other that much, but number one, I think we are, and number two, it takes energy to keep doing this work. And we can feed off each other's energy and positivism, right? And create that momentum because we all get burned out. And it's great to come to a place like this and meet with people that feed me instead of draining me in my work. You need a certain number of those trips every year if you want to keep up with the others.
There was one thing also, you were going to say something?
Just meeting you.
Sir?
Just meeting you and hearing you makes my heart glow.
Thank you.
It was wonderful for me to be here at this time.
It was wonderful for me to be here. I mean, I'm the one that, I call myself the chatty Cathy. I'm able to talk and express, but I've got slow down methods behind here too that I work with that are against me. And thank you. I appreciate it. I'd like to shake your hand.
Oh, I'll give you a hug one more through.
Okay, then hug me one more through.
You're a hugger, right? Yeah, that's right.
I hug and kiss and hold.
And Niall, thanks for your words. Simple and powerful and direct. You said in 3 words what I said in 5 minutes, so you got it down.
I believe it's Richard.
Yes.
You were saying you felt that you failed somebody by not getting the information to them. They fall asleep and all that stuff like that. And I don't know if you heard the expression about you can lead a horse for water, but you can't
Make them drink.
Right.
And that's the problem.
There's a lot of horses out there.
Yeah, a lot of jackasses too.
Amen, brother.
What were you going to say?
Yeah, Richard, I was going to say This has something to do with many of the things that you have been talking about in the last few days. But something that Al said a little bit earlier about do not write down hallucinations, which is an interpretation, but rather write down what actually did you hear or see. What was it, you know, she talked about the bird flying out there in the sky or whatever. Really staying close to the actual phenomena, right? So, same is when you say, Richard, I am Richard and I have dementia, or was diagnosed with dementia, I think there is an idea that our identity is monolithic, right? That our identity is something that just stays. We are a person and we stay that person and we become attached to that person, whatever that person is, and that should be going on. But we know it actually is not going on. Many times I know my biggest suffering comes when there is a change and I don't like it, or I have to adjust to it. Then I suffer, right? Because my identity is shifting. So I'm thinking, on the one hand, here you are, Richard, you're this amazing person, a psychologist, and that is really, you can't really encapsulate that in a few words, books, paragraphs, because you're much too rich. Yet, on the other hand, you're using a word, for example, dementia, that is so specific. And it's so specific that it is meaningless because it cannot describe the amazing variety of people who are afflicted with what is called dementia. So that's an inherent paradox. You're using a label that actually probably no one would agree on in terms of its definition. And you are using that label for a person that is as rich and varied as Richard Taylor. And there is already a contrast. So that kind of identification with I am Richard Taylor, which is infinite in terms of description and understanding and bottomlessness and groundlessness, and then I have this dimension. So I think that has to change, and that is, I think, what you were talking about, Al, as your next book project or your next research project. How do we get beyond the stigma? Right? How do we stop, in some ways, using the term dementia? Because it cannot possibly, you're actually doing a disservice, whoever says it, just like if I said I am majorly depressed. What do I actually mean? You're going to have a fantasy about it, you're going to have one, everybody's going to have a fantasy about what that means. I probably have a fantasy about that, if even though I have a fantasy. So it doesn't do me any good to actually use those terms because it prevents me from digging more deeply into what is that. So there's, on the one hand, I'm talking about letting go of identity in a monolithic way, as if there's something that just stays with us throughout life. So being much more flexible and accepting, actually talking about multiple personality order rather than disorder. Right? I mean, I think you have a disorder when you actually just have one order. That's a disorder, in my opinion. But he called it the other way around, multiple personality disorder. But so there's a multiple personality order, and
I think you're making a speech.
thank you. How am I doing?
What's the matter?
Not too well, if I could determine it.
Thank you, Nader. Okay, well, I'll stop there.
Now's our truth teller.
That's good.
So much for that.
All right, good. Scratch that now.
Scratch it.
Food for thought, though. Definitely food for thought.
Okay, thank
I've been eating my food here. Good stuff.
you. I got all excited there.
I had lunch.
So you've had lunch. You know, that was your food for thought. That was a lunch, huh? You should have said I had a banquet. He's got a great sense of humor.
He does.
If that's food for thought, I
He's
just
awake.
had lunch.
Well, thank you guys. It's already 3:30.
Wow,
So
time flies. Thank you also for speaking so much and
Yes,
being part of
thank
this.
you.
You know, we did this about a year ago, and the same thing. We had Niall, we had Jojo, and I forget your name. Sorry, sir.
Joseph.
Joseph. That's right. And I think Laura may have been there. And it's just you say two words and then you just let it go, and there's such rich discussion.
It just flies.
Yeah, it was just wonderful. We had the woman, I don't know if she's still with us, there was a woman of Asian descent who sat here who had a stroke. And she talked about how she was over 90 and every day life was even more precious and she enjoyed every day even more than she did before. And it was just an amazing revelation for someone who other people would look at and say, oh, she's disabled, she's sick, she's dying.
You know, I hate the word disabled. I made up my own word.
Good, let's hear it.
Handy-capable.
Handy-capable.
Disabled means not able, and every single one of us is able.
You're right. You're right.
I mean, Constance and I wrote my autobiography, and that's the word I put in there, handy-capable. Because disabled means not able. And we're able in many ways, not just disabled. So we sit in the chair, so I follow my face, so I have a bracelet. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm rattling, doctor, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. You remind me of a funny story I heard down in Mississippi about a year ago. I was talking to a gentleman who was living with symptoms of Alzheimer's, and they had a regular group of people and their spouses who met as like a social and support group. And he said, you know, we were getting together and we were trying to decide what to call ourselves because our spouses call themselves caregivers or care partners, and we wanted a name for ourselves. So we thought about it. We decided we're the haves and they're the have-nots.
Yeah.
I thought that's a great way to turn it around.
I love it.
That's great.
The haves and the have-nots.
Right on, right on.
All right, a little food, a little drink.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.